Okay, let's do a deeper dive here to discuss those stories and this week's top political headlines. The host of WGN Political Report, Paul Lisnek.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Paul. A lot on the table here. Let's start with the Department of Education dismantling.
Well, here's the thing. Trump does not have the power to do that. It has to be an act of Congress. But what he is doing is essentially disabling it to the point where without staff, without buildings for as time goes on, how will they be able to do what they do? Now, some people don't understand what it is Department of Education even does. They don't set curriculum. They don't hire teachers. They don't do teacher testing. There's nothing like that. That is sort of a local thing that happens. But for special ed kids, for loans, for grants in higher ed, that's what among other things, that's what they handle. That's going to be the tough part. We've had Governor Pritzker here in Illinois say this is going to be a tough hit when the funds that come in for those purposes get cut. And the reason is, remember, Illinois sends money to the federal government. Part of that comes back to us through education. My question would be, well, if you're not giving it back to us in education, well, then do we not have to send you the money in the first place? It's an unknown answer.
But today, well, I don't know if it was today or not, but today or yesterday, he said HHS and other departments will be handling those things.
Yeah, but they're also being cut too. So you've got in all of these areas, staff is getting cut and cut and cut. So this huge, you're right, this huge effort goes on to HHS. And meanwhile, we also hear today that there's thousands of people being cut. So you can assign it to them, but if there's nobody there to staff it or very few people there to staff it, the waits are weeks, and that's the problem.
Is it fair to say the Department of Education was created back in the 70s to help the poorer rural districts who have special needs kids get that funding that they need to help these kids and wouldn't get it anywhere else except from the federal government?
Yeah, well, by the way, this department was created under President Jimmy Carter. So in the 70s is when it got created.
79, I think, right?
70, yeah. But all the Republican presidents, mostly since then, have tried to dismantle it, starting with Ronald Reagan, except for George W. Bush, who actually funded it, decreased the funding of it, because he understands the importance of education. And so, yes, Patrick, the answer to your question is it is designed to help folks from poor areas and rural areas. And so the hit is going to be felt primarily more so, I mean, we'll feel it here as well, but it's going to be felt in red states and areas that are Trump territory. So I kind of wonder what the theory is in hitting areas that that support the president.
Let's talk a little bit about the deportations. We mentioned it just a little while ago. The Venezuelans who Trump says are all gang members. It's still a controversy. This was a week ago when he did this, back on a Saturday, I think it was, and went up in the air. And Justice Boasberg says, bring them back.
Yeah, well, and the reason it's still going on is because Judge Boasberg's still waiting for answers, and he's not happy about it. He's known as a very temperate judge. By the way, Trump has been calling him this leftist whatever. He was a George W. Bush appointee.
Initially, yeah.
So, yeah, initially. And then Obama did elevate him, but he's the one that released Hillary's emails.
Right.
He has done lots of things that conservatives would love. So, but now he's making a decision. Here's what I think people need to understand, because I see it in social media and I've gotten questions about it. People seem to think that, and based on what the president says too, that Boasberg is trying to get in the way of the government from deporting people. They're trying to keep criminals here in the country. That is not what this is about. Remember, this is lawyer hat time on, not political hat. It is the judge's job to be sure that whatever is being done by the president or anybody else is being done lawfully.
Due process.
Due process is exactly what we're all entitled to. So the judge didn't say you can't send them. What the judge said is, who are on there's already reports that there's a couple of American citizens potentially on there. There's people who are not gang members on there. There's one guy reportedly he's a hairstylist, a makeup artist, but we can't get to these people to find out what's going on.
And they're all in El Salvador now.
And they're all in El Salvador, in a prison where you're not treated very well. So the bottom line is, for people who are giving this judge a hassle, he's doing his job by simply saying, I need to know how this happened, how they got there, how do we know these are the right people? Are they the right people? Then they can go. He's not questioning the president's power. He's questioning the mechanism for how it got done.
In so many ways, we're in uncharted territory these days. Insofar, including the Chief Justice John Roberts, essentially condemning what was going on in terms of the due process.
That was extraordinary, by the way. The Chief Justice does not step out and sort of issue statements from time. He's not part of the political process.
It's intended he's not supposed to be.
Exactly. He's a sidelines guy. He's also the one who wrote the decision giving the president almost full immunity. So he owns a little of this here for what it is that's going on. That's another discussion. But the bottom line here is when Boasberg made his decision to say, I want to know what and how is happening here, and then you have these calls by President Trump, impeach this guy, and then you have people in Congress ready to impeach him. Yeah, Chief Justice Roberts comes out and says, excuse me, that's not what we do here. We appeal decisions we're not happy with. Ultimately, that this decision, by the way, it will get appealed. Where's it going to end up? The U.S. Supreme Court. Who's going to deal with it? Chief Justice John Roberts, whatever. So I think on some level, and remember, Trump's response to that was, well, Roberts didn't mention me by name. President Trump understands that ultimately it's in Robert and that court's hand, and I don't think he wants that court angry at him at the time that it gets up there. It'll take time.
We also mentioned a New York Times report that said Elon Musk was supposed to meet and talk to Trump and some others about some plans they have going on with China in case there's a war that he has to deal with. But then it turned around. He backpedaled on that today.
So it was also reported by the Wall Street Journal. So it wasn't, and Trump today has been calling it fake news, and it's the liberal New York Times, but it was the not liberal Wall Street Journal that also reported this. So one of two things happened. Either it is an error in reporting, that's possible, or the other thing is that when
For both of them to have an error, the Post and New York Times?
Well, I didn't say it was likely. I said it was possible.
Okay.
It's a possibility.
Okay.
But the other thing, and probably more likely, is that, I mean, first of all, why did it leak in the first place? It may very well be that people within the Pentagon weren't happy with what was going on. They leaked. Somebody leaked it. They leaked it. And when it came out publicly, it may have been, this happened in the first Trump term, it got reversed and decisions changed. So again, Trump played it well because he said, I would never allow this thing. He's got interest in China, and that may be. We'll never actually know which way it went until some leaker speaks to it. But it's one of the two things. Yes, it could have been a mistake, or some would say more likely, maybe it was something that was going to happen, but when it came out, even the president realized we can't do this.
The assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy files released. Any surprises?
Yeah, the surprise was that the documents released were pretty much all the documents we've seen before. No news, I know what you meant. No new surprises in terms of, did Lee Harvey Oswald have an accomplice? No. Nothing in the documents that said that, so we don't know whether there's anything more. But what was a surprise was President Trump said, he went to the Kennedy Center for their first board meeting, where he then announced that he will be determining who is going to get Kennedy Center honors and stuff going forward. Topic for another day. But one of the other things he said was that he was going to now release fully unredacted all of these documents. Again, we had seen all these documents before, but the parts that were redacted before that were not redacted in the new release, Social Security numbers and other pertinent information for a variety of people in those documents, people who are still alive, one of whom, for example, Attorney Joe DeGeneva, I think we know his name. Yeah. He actually represented Trump, very conservative Republican lawyer. He did a lot of TV and stuff. His Social Security number, a lot of those people are still alive. And that is all out in the public. So talk about doxing and other risks. To have that's what got released.
I don't want the week to go by without mentioning a whole lot of stuff this week. Mentioning that Jackie Robinson, his page was deleted from the Department of Defense, the first black man to ever play in major baseball. I don't know sports, but I do know that. Baseball was eliminated from the Justice Department's pages, along with other things. The Navajo Indians, who were code readers. The fact that the Enola Gay dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, and that was eliminated because the name Gay was in it. What's going on?
And here? Holocaust survivors.
Yes.
And other. Here's what I think happened, because a lot of people that think, this was intentionally went after Jackie Robinson.
This is not a DEI
But that's where
issue.
it comes from.
Okay.
So what happened was, and I'm not a tech person, but clearly there was a code put into the system that sought to identify anything tied to DEI, to race, to gender, to all that. And so hence things like Enola Gay. It caught the word gay. So it pulled everything.
I think there was another person who was white with the name Gay who was eliminated. And it was just their name.
Yeah, well, and they actually changed that name to homosexual. So that's what the system
did. So the computer did this.
Exactly.
Where are the gatekeepers, though?
Well, the gatekeepers are the people who, when this stuff comes out afterwards, said, what are you doing? Jackie Robinson is an American hero.
And that's afterwards, Paul.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why somebody
Patrick,
vetting this stuff before?
This is one of the issues people are having, which is fine if you want to, seek out fraud and waste and abuse. You want to do all these things, do it carefully. All of these are examples of how careful are you being? Yeah. If you're releasing names and Social Security numbers from Kennedy documents, if you are taking all these things out like Jackie Robinson and you have to put them back later because, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, if you're firing people who are studying bird flu and then you realize, we shouldn't have done that.
So do it with a scalpel,
like that,
not a hatchet.
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And maybe that'll eventually change. But listen, we're starting to see in town halls around the country, Republicans and Democrats,
both.
People are angry. That's where if there's any kind of change or modification to this, it's going to come from the people, because certainly Congress doesn't exist.
Even the Democrats are angry at the Democrats.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly right.
Each other. Okay. Right. What's coming up on your show?
So on this Sunday, we're going to have Alderman Jason Ervin. He's going to join me talking about, we didn't even get to the CPS, CTU stuff.
Well,
I'm going to talk to Alderman.
So much to talk about.
Right. I'm going to talk to Alderman Ervin about all of that. And Cook County Clerk Monica Gordon appears for the first time. Remember, she took over when Karen Yarborough died
Yes.
unexpectedly,
Yes.
and then she won her own election in November. She's going to talk about early voting in the Cook County suburban areas and trying to get people out to vote, because people don't vote, and people have to realize that actually it's these smaller elections that affect your life
Don't
much
wait
more
till the
so than when you're
primaries
voting
and
for
the generals.
president.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, guys.